Hey guys, it's Tim coming at you with a brand new episode of The Spotlight, the show where I pose an interesting question or just a general interesting idea and then have you guys take it from there in the comments. Throughout the years, as the comic book medium has grown, expanded, and evolved, writers have been using real-world politics in order to catalyze new stories. And this ranges from things from race relations to gender relations to various parts of both American and world history. And while it is noble to champion these kinds of issues, the question that I have for this week is what role should these politics play in comics, especially in comics that have an ongoing continuity to them? Because what I find is that a lot of these stories that have these kinds of politics in them tend to get the most pushback to them when there's something about them that contradicts something that's already been established. For example, let's take a look at Isaiah Bradley and his miniseries Truth, Red, White, and Black. And for those who don't know who Isaiah is, in 2003 Marvel decided to make a miniseries about a previously unknown black Captain America who also operated during World War II. The idea behind the series was to examine and analyze race relations, conspiracy theories, as well as draw a direct comparison to the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. All of which, not bad ideas to draw attention to. The problem that they faced, outside of just people reacting to a black Captain America, was the timescale that they put this in. See, in the series it's established that the events of the miniseries Red, White, and Black take place after Pearl Harbor when America entered World War II. And the reason that this created a problem was that Captain America comic number 1 came out a year before Pearl Harbor, which meant that Steve Rogers was actively fighting against Nazis 1 year before America entered World War II. And it was asserted that Isaiah was in fact the first Captain America before Steve Rogers at the time. So essentially, there was a lot of fan backlash because of this, because people felt that it was disrespectful to Steve to basically retcon all of his adventures prior to Pearl Harbor as Captain America against the Nazi threat basically out of existence by this decision. To the point that Marvel essentially had to go back on this and establish in story that Steve already existed before the experiment that created Isaiah Bradley as Captain America. Unfortunately, the damage was done and part of the message ended up being lost because of this backlash. And this isn't just a problem that happened back in 2003, this problem actually ended up cropping up fairly recently as well. Because you may have seen a few scans from the recent Mockingbird series where they attempted to tell her backstory about her trying to become a superhero. Essentially, the message with this was to say that if women use their mind and work hard, they can accomplish great things that are equal to the accomplishment of their male counterparts, if not greater. The reason that these panels became infamous when they came out is that it asserted that all of the major superheroes at the time were entirely male. Which admittedly may have worked had they gone a bit earlier with the timescale that they set for this flashback, but because the Cyclops that they used in the flashback was him when he was leading X-Factor, that would mean that the timescale this took place in was during a period where Storm was the leader of the X-Men and the Wasp was the leader of the Avengers. So in an attempt to empower women, they actually inadvertently belittled the accomplishment of women in comics at the time. And the series ended up becoming infamous for this in a short period of time. So with these two examples, you run into the problem where, while the idea behind the comic is solid and the politics aren't inherently bad, the points they were trying to make end up being hurt by execution, especially when put into an established universe. But I'm sure you're wondering if there have been examples where this has worked. And there has. There's been a fairly long-running concept that has worked well with trying to assert different types of politics. And that would be the X-Men. Because of the nature of mutants in the Marvel Universe, they can be a stand-in for any political or social group that has an issue that needs to be addressed about it. This helps by taking stress off of established viewpoints by putting it into a different context. And because the X-Men can represent any group that they want to, pretty much anyone can find that they relate to the X-Men in some way. From what I find, politics in comics tend to work best when you blend them in more seamlessly with the story that you're trying to tell. Because when ideas are presented too blatantly, or if they go against things that were already established in order to prove a point, people can see the agenda that they're trying to push and are going to be naturally resistant to it. But what do you guys think about this? How do you feel that politics should be handled in comics? If you do go that route, do you feel that you should blend it into what you're saying, or do you feel that that could get the message to be lost? Do you feel that sometimes you need to be blunt force trauma in your approach so that people can see what the problem is? Or do you feel that superhero comics aren't the place where these politics should be being addressed? And do you feel that writers should leave their politics at the door in favor of focusing on telling a good story with their character? Well, as always, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments, and if you have any thoughts on ideas or questions that you'd like us to spotlight in the future, feel free to leave those in the comments as well. But until next time, this has been Tim from the Hybrid Network, signing out.